Hello YouTube land, this is Sawyer. We're here with another video of my collection. We're just going through some random books put aside. Um, let's see. First off, we have Secrets of the Legion of Superheroes #1. This is everybody knows from my other videos I'm a big Legion of Superheroes fan. And this is a cool little miniseries. I used to have all these. I think I might still have them somewhere. But yeah, this is a really cool little miniseries. It's basically it's really just kind of like a what do you call it? Like a history book thing, like kind of explaining the history of Legion of Superheroes, like their publication history. Like it summarizes a lot of their early stories and like the key stories, like how each member joined and different villains they had, different important points in their history. But the way they do the story, like the excuse they have in the story to tell the history of the Legion of Superheroes is their founder. I forget exactly what his name is, like AJ or RJ or something. But their founder, the guy, like the human guy that basically funded their organization and put them together way back in the day, he's dying of some kind of rare disease or something, and he needs like a blood transplant or something like that. But only somebody in his immediate family can do it for him. But he has no family. But then you find out that I forget somebody's like trying to break into the research facility where they keep all their records, because you find out that there actually is someone that's a member of Legion of Superheroes that actually is like his son or something like that. But he doesn't know that, and so they have to basically go through the records to kind of piece together who his kid might be. And it's kind of cool. It's just kind of a cool way to have an excuse to tell the story of like the history of the Legion of Superheroes as they're going through the records. And when it finishes, you find out that, like, I'm not going to spoil that, but you find out that one of these, one of the old time members of the team is actually his son or something like that, and didn't know it. So it's kind of a cool storyline. I don't even know if it's really canon anymore. The way DC's always changing shit around. Um, then we have Batman Detective Comics #664. The classic Bane cover. I think everybody remembers this issue. This is the one where I'm pretty sure this is the one where Bane actually breaks Batman's back. It's pretty classic. I don't know if this book actually goes for anything. Like it's a pretty key story, but I think it's one of those keys that is so like reproduced and not really old enough, so it's not really worth all that much. But yeah, it's a cool key. I mean, it's a cool story. If you actually ever read the Nightfall story, it's actually really cool because Bane, like like in the movie, like in the older movies, he comes off as being kind of or in the cartoon, he kind of comes off as being this brainless brute. But he's actually really smart because in the comic books, he basically breaks all the criminals out of Arkham. He lets them loose on the city, and he basically he has Batman. He basically puts things into position so that Batman has to fight all these criminals over and over without really getting any time to rest. So and finally, like after like a week or two, he finally strikes at Batman whenever Batman's like at his physical weakest, and he can't keep his own against him. So yeah, really interesting story. Then we have Avengers Annual. Um, yeah, Giant Size Annual number 17? Yeah. So this is a cool book. I just like this cover. It's got the High Evolutionary in there. You really don't see the High Evolutionary that much. At least I don't. Actually, the first time I ever remember being introduced to this character was actually in the Spider-Man cartoon, not the '90s one. Well, it was the Spider-Man like 2001 or whatever it's called. It was that. I don't know if you guys remember. It was that really kind of shitty one where he was in the future and Spider-Man had this kind of high-tech coat suit on, and I think if I remember right, he gets sent to like an alien planet or something. Like he's fighting Venom and Carnage, and they get stuck on a rocket ship or something, and they go into outer space, and there's like a planet full of like animal hybrid people, and the High Evolutionary's there, because in the comic books, High Evolutionary has a planet full of animal hybrids. So it was just a really weird idea for a cartoon. I don't understand like what made them decide to go with that particular route for the cartoon. I always thought it was weird, but yeah. Then we have Specter. Two of three, so part of a miniseries, Infinite Crisis Aftermath. Kind of a goofy cover. I usually like Spectre covers. Well, I like the old school Spectre covers. They're amazing looking. I just find this funny because apparently, like during this time, they decided to give the Spectre like a goatee, and I can't help but think that this goatee It's just to improvise that restructure the fact that it's a black guy, being the Specter. I don't know if actually it was a black guy being the Specter, but I just feel like that big ass goatee is supposed to make us feel like he's a black guy, in being possessed by Specter. So yeah, I always thought it was interesting. They decided to draw that in there. Then we have Iron Man number 183. This is I just like this cover. It's kind of a cool little late 80s cover. Well, is it? It looks like 80s. Yeah, I just like it. I like it. I love the Iron Man comic books from this time period. I don't know who the artist is that's doing these, but I like his art or her art. It could be a woman. Then we have King Size Annual Peter Parker. This is Specter Spider-Man number 3. That was a big title. That's too much of a title. Just a pretty cool cover. It's a little banged up. It's got some chipping on the top and some chipping on the sides. Kind of been through a lot, but it's a cool cover. Featuring the Man Wolf, J. Jonah Jameson's son, who really doesn't. Who I don't think really gets used all that much anymore. He was kind of big, like in the early years of Spider-Man, but I don't know if it's really utilized all that much anymore. Then we have the Demon number 4. Really cool classic Jack Kirby art. Demon's kind of interesting because Demon's like one of the few titles I can think of that Jack Kirby did a lot of work on. That's not a sci-fi story. Like it's straight up supernatural magic. And, I don't remember Jack Kirby doing a whole lot of that kind of stuff. But it is cool. It's kind of interesting how his art his style can still be really fantastical in a supernatural setting or in a medieval kind of setting. I keep dropping this goddamn thing. It's getting on my nerves. So, then we have The Flash, number 95. This is like the era of Flash that I really enjoy. Well, my favorite era of the Flash is right after Crisis on Infinite Earths, like over in the late 80s, whenever Wally West took up the mantle after Barry died, and Wally's powers, Wally gets his powers hurt real bad. Like, he can't really access the Speed Force very much, so he's kind of slow. I mean, he's not slow, but he's slow compared to what the Flash was in earlier years. So it was really kind of interesting because it kind of depowered him, and I feel like it made for better stories. Now this is a few years later, whenever it was starting to get a little bit more. Actually, it's kind of quite a few years later, but this is a little bit later, whenever it was starting to get more like, they were starting to kind of catch Wally back up to where the Flash originally was, and eventually, it might be at this point, but eventually Wally actually gets faster than Barry ever was in the original timeline. Like he actually totally surpasses him, and I remember this issue. This is just. I like the art, and I just like the time period. Like, whenever you had Impulse popped up, and he was basically Kid Flash for Kid Flash. He was Wally's Kid Flash, which is kind of interesting. That Wally was at that point where Wally was actually the mentor, and he had his own protege. So that was kind of cool. And these Flash comics always had a lot of cool. This Flash run is kind of like the beginning of the whole Flash family kind of dynamic that we see a lot in the actual Flash TV show. That was the first time you had multiple speedsters that kind of being together all the time. I mean, Jesse Quick was always up in there. You had Jay Garrett was always up in there. Max Mercury was up in there, which I kind of wanted to put Max Mercury in the TV show at some point, but I don't know how they could fit it in there, but I would love to see it. Next up we have this kind of old one woman cover from sometime in the 70s it looks like, but probably 80s. 241. It's a cool cover. I like it. It's just kind of one of those gimmicky word bubble covers. Then we have the Defenders number 49. Interesting cover. It's kind of funny because a lot of the general audiences or general public kind of relate to the Defenders of being like the street level brawler group, what they are in the TV show, like Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage. But I mean, originally the Defenders were actually totally different. Originally the Defenders were much more like high level, powerful team. I mean, they were actually the original lineup was actually more powerful than the Avengers. I think it was 4 people if I remember right. It was Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer. That right there is just very powerful team. But then you also had the Hulk, and then you also had Submariner. So that was So you had like two really strong like bruiser kind of characters, but then you also had two like incredibly powerful cosmic level kind of characters. You know, like it was an interesting team. But this was like a little bit later. This was another lineup. And this lineup's still pretty powerful. I mean, you have Valkyrie, and you have Hawk, which are pretty powerful. Then you have Moon Knight, he's pretty powerful. I mean, he's definitely higher up on the scale than the people on the TV show. And then you have Hellcat, which she's not really anything, but yeah. Fun fact: Hellcat is actually Trish from Jessica Jones. That's like her in the comic books. That's who Trish becomes as Hellcat, which is like this vigilante kind of character. And I'm waiting for them to actually finally have her kind of fully develop into that character in the TV show. I mean, I doubt she'll ever get to the point where she's wearing like yellow spandex and shit. But I just want her to I want her to go out and start actually proactively fighting crime or something. Like I want her to start acting like a vigilante because that's what she is in the comics. Then we have Justice League America, number 70. Funeral for this is the classic, Superman's dead cover with the Justice League all kind of mourning. I almost said moaning. Although Justice League mourning over Superman. Kind of an interesting cover. It's interesting to me because this is such a huge thing for Superman mythos, but all the characters on this cover are kind of like just flavor of the day kind of characters. Like it's weird because this version of the Justice League is not what you usually associate the Justice League with. So I always found it interesting that like such a huge event like Superman's death, and the people that are mourning his death, the people that were fighting alongside him were Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, Ice. Is that her name? Ice, I guess. And then you have, is that Fire back there? I don't even know. Oh no, that's that Maxi chick or some shit. I don't know. And then you got Guy Garner, and then you got this other guy who I can never remember his name. He was very little known. He's just like this. I think he's like this voodoo kind of guy or something, or some kind of sorcerer character. But yeah, just a weird lineup at the time. Then we have this old Command Knight comic number 5. This is Jack Kirby. Like this is awesome, Jack Kirby. I mean, if I remember right, this is one of Jack Kirby's kind of passion projects when he moved to DC. Because I believe I remember right from what I heard, he moved from Marvel to DC because he felt like he was being mistreated at Marvel, and so he went to the competition, and he started he started developing his own ideas. Cause that's what he did. That's what he liked to do. He liked to come up with ideas and start stuff up, but he didn't really finish them very often. Like he would get bored. He had that classic kind of artistic thing where you just want to create things, but you don't really necessarily want to like end them. So he was always starting up these whole big sagas and storylines, and he was always creating these big worlds. But I don't think he really ever got around to finishing them, and then they just kept going. But Command is a really cool one because Command is basically it's basically kind of like a post-apocalyptic story. You can tell it gets a lot of inspiration from Planet of the Apes. Or maybe this is, I'm actually not sure. This might predate Planet of the Apes. I don't think it does, but it's possible. I haven't fact checked it. But yeah, it's a really interesting storyline about this kid who survives a nuclear fallout by like staying in this bunker with his uncle or something like that. His uncle dies, and when the kid decides he has to go out and explore now because there's nothing left for him in the little safe house. And he goes out and he realizes that the world's completely different than what he was taught in the books, in the history books or whatever, and that basically all the humans are gone, if I remember right, and there's all the animals have been mutated. They've learned how to speak. They've learned how to be intelligent. They've created their own like subcultures, and it's really interesting because it kind of this story actually touches down on like a lot of kind of social issues and racism and stuff. Because if I remember right, there's a hierarchy to it. Like certain animals were more powerful than other animals. They had higher places in the society. And there was animals that were always having wars with other animals. Like if I remember, the gorillas and the tigers were more like the military, kind of the powerful fighting groups among the animals. But then you had other animals like the dogs. The dogs were more like the scientific kind of people, and I don't want to say pacifists, but they were usually more like the science division stuff. It was just interesting how they did that. I'm a sucker for a good post-apocalyptic story that recreates the cultural chain of things. Then we have Anything Goes. This is number 6. This is like an underground comic. I don't even know where I bought this at. And I think it's like a mashup of stories, but it does display this guy right here, little rabbit dude. I forget his name. Well, I don't forget his name. I just can't pronounce it. But it's a character from the he is a character that was created by the same creators as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he's a kind of a recurring character in the Teenage Mutant Turtles mythos. He's basically a samurai rabbit because there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so why can't there be a samurai rabbit? He's actually a really awesome character. I enjoy him. I do have a few of his books that I found a while back. Like the old underground comics are all black and white and stuff. Then we have Marvel Tales, starring Spider-Man, number 44. If I remember right, I think Marvel Tales is like reprints of older Spider-Man books, Spider-Man stories. I'm not sure though, but this does I think this is a reprint though because it shows like an old-fashioned Kingpin on the cover, and I'm pretty sure this book is a lot newer than what Kingpin looked like that. Because Kingpin always looked like that in his first 2 appearances. He had that classic. Nowadays we kind of always represent him wearing a big white suit, but like in his first few appearances he was wearing like green, like in that cover. And he also had this big old, I don't know if you can see it. He also had this big old pendant thing on his on his tie. That was kind of like a very distinguished factor that Kingpin always had. And then they kind of just got rid of that later on, and he never has it anymore. But yeah. And also, fun fact is Kingpin was originally a Spider-Man villain, primarily a Spider-Man villain. Nowadays he's more associated with, Daredevil and Punisher. I mean, most of Daredevil, he's still associated with Punisher a little bit, and Spider-Man, but for the most part he's associated with Daredevil nowadays. Then we have our last comic I want to talk about is Superman Archie Comics number 771. God damn. I wonder what they're up to now. Like, I wonder if did they ever restart the count on Archie Comics and all that, and Detective Comics, or are they still going? Like, is there a Detective Comics number 1215 by now? I haven't kept up with it. But this is a cool cover. I like it. It's got a little Nightwing Superman team up. Something you don't see too often. Usually Superman just teams up with Batman, but this is kind of cool. If I remember right, they're in Bloodhaven. Like, Superman has to go to Bloodhaven for some reason. And it's also kind of a cool little. They got a cool vote for Lex thing right there because during this time period, Lex Luthor was Lex Luthor was actually becoming president. He does become president, and it's actually a really interesting storyline. And I don't remember, but they might have actually had an actual vote for that. I don't know if they did or not. It probably was something they voted for, like that fans could send in and vote for. Because I know like in the 70s or whatever or the 80s they had a vote for to see if Robin was going to die or not, like Jason Todd, and spoiler alert, he lost the vote. But yeah, so yeah, that's all I got, guys, for this video. See you guys later.